Welcome to the Happy Mindset Show, episode number 9. Today's episode is entitled New2Code, and with me I have William Kennedy. So William is a self-taught software developer working in Ruby on Rails, and I thought it'd be nice to have him on the show today to give us some insights into how to go about learning software development and to actually land the job. So thanks for joining us today William, and can you give us an introduction into what you're at?
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. I didn't think I'd need an introduction, to be honest, but anyway. I'm just a software developer. I work for an Irish company here in Dublin, and I suppose how we met is we met through work, but I'm here to talk about mostly how I became a software developer without going to college. I didn't go down the traditional route. And so originally I started a blog called New2Code back in 2013, which was with the aim of helping me demonstrate my knowledge. And from there, that was 2013. In 2015, then, or about a year and a half later, I managed to get a job. So that is my basic story. And from there, then I've just been slowly trying to get better software development.
Okay, so why did you decide to get into software development, and when did you make that choice?
It was the accumulation of things. I lived in Canada, when I was 21. So I was about to say when I was young, but I'm 28. I'm not that old. So when I was 21 or 22, I lived in Canada for a year, and at the time I was working in a cell phone shop for one of the big networks, and everyone was showing me apps and what you could do. I met a businessman who was making a lot of money from apps, and it's a very simple thing. It was there was a celebrity, an Indian celebrity, and it was basically this Indian celebrity would sell private content to app, and you subscribe to $5 a month. And I was like, "Oh, you're making money from that?" He goes, "Oh yeah." And then things like that then started triggering me, and then I started seeing the impact that the iPhone was having. Everyone was using iPhone. And I was never really kind of a person that liked consuming new games. Or, I would for a while, but then I was like, I really want to make stuff. Because the job I was doing was just failed. And I just had in my head I wanted to create stuff, but I kind of put it on the back burner. And so that was kind of the beginning of it. And then I came back to Ireland. I got the same job in Ireland, and I worked twice as many hours and got half the money. So typical Ireland, and I was just still thinking like I want to change my career. Because I went to college, I did an administration course called public administration, which is about managing government and things like that. And I was thinking of moving into that area, but I didn't really want it, and it wasn't really. I didn't really want to work for politicians, and so I decided I'm going to try and teach myself software development. College wasn't an option because I simply didn't want to go back to college. And, I figured I could learn from books, I could learn from YouTube, I could learn from these new ways, and I wouldn't have to spend all this money and time and commitment when I could still have a job and do it on the side. And so in November 2013, I set a 5-year goal to become a software developer within 5 years. And luckily I managed to achieve within 2. So it was just very fortunate. And I got the first job, and then slowly from there, I've just been studying. I still continue to study in the evenings and practice.
Cool. So actually, you touched on there. You went to college to study public administration, and you dropped out in third year. So can you just talk us through how did that work out for you? Like, did you feel any pressure, or what happened there?
Yeah. So I was 20 at that point. And in hindsight, and even at the time, I said, at the time, the decision was if I stayed and did the degree, I felt it would have closed doors for me. A lot of people think the piece of paper is going to open doors for me, but I felt the culture that surrounded the degree, that you have a degree to have this job, so you must have a degree to get this job. So people there's a culture surrounding them. And I felt if I got a degree, I would be embedded in that culture in a way. I would say, well, I have a degree, so I must be smart than you. I didn't want that for myself. And there was, I had a belief that there's a market. Then there is a market. There's demand and supply, and I believe at the time that if I became really good at something, that I would do well. I would do okay, and I didn't feel this when I went to learn software development. I just was looking at all the different real courses. I said they're being taught by people who never actually worked in the industry. They never really worked. They just worked in the college. Like they don't have that broad experience. And lots of people have taught themselves code. And in the first place, by no means a pioneer. I just thought there's no reason I could do it myself. And so I just felt college wasn't, at least the course I was doing, it did offer value to my life, without a doubt. But I don't think it was a good idea to pursue it to the end. And so I had to deal with, like, when I told my parents I wasn't going to go back to college, I had to deal with all that pressure. That was most of the pressure, was my family was putting doubts to me, but I kind of knew that I could figure things out.
So what were you reading at the time that you had these kind of firm beliefs, or where do you think that came from?
I think that the kind of belief in the market came from our understanding of the market. It was funny, in secondary school I did economics, but my dad is a farmer, and that's how he makes a living. He's not going to bring in money if no one wants to buy food. And, when there's high demand for meat, he's doing better. When there's lower demand, he's not doing so well. So I suppose growing up in a household like that, we just intrinsically just figure it out. And then, like, when I was younger, I got my first job when I was 13. And, I think those kind of experiences, when you get a job when you're young, and even though you don't appreciate it at the time, it does make an impact on you. And you realize, if I do something for somebody, they pay me, or if I help someone else, they earn money. And so I was slowly understanding that, well, if you do things, you get money back. And so before I went to college, I'd already worked like 4 or 5 jobs. And so I didn't really feel college was going to get me a new job, because I was already doing 4 or 5 jobs, right? So I think that's where it kind of came from. And then I started reading books, like different books. Because I got a Kindle like in 2011, 2012, I just started buying a load of self-help books. So books like, I started off very simple books, just 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, different books like that. And then most I was just reading blog posts, random blog posts of people who've started businesses. And, I just started seeing my perspective start to shift. There's a wider thing going on. You don't need to get a specific degree to do a specific job. You can actually be good at multiple things. I don't just know how to code. I can write. I can clean. I can do whatever. I can do a host of things.
How do you find the balance there between, like, they're talking being a generalist there? How do you find the balance, like, putting into a specialization where you can excel in?
I think, like, it's a good question, actually. It's, you have to like limit what you're going to do, because I suppose the temptation when you're younger is, and it's something I wish I knew in hindsight, is that it's good to like niche down and just get good at one thing. Naturally, if you kind of get good at one thing, well, you're going to quickly get good at another thing. But skills are transferable. So one skill that I think really helped me is I learned how to develop a routine. And so I've lived like a pretty routine person, and it's something I had to build myself. So in my early 20s, and because a lot of successful people that I read about just had these routines, and they just go in every day, they do their bit, and then they go back and they do it again, and all of a sudden, after some time, everything compounds and they start getting these results. And so I knew early on I had to build a routine.
Or when you start building a routine?
Yeah, like, so when it comes to like specialization, I started building a routine to learn new skills, and I knew these new skills would help. So when it comes to I actually trailed off a bit. When it comes to like specialization versus generalization, I think it's better to be a specialist to think like a generalist. So have the skills of a specialist. So be really good at one thing, but be able to think in a broad perspective about different aspects. So a lot of programmers, they are good programmers, but they don't understand the function they have to the business. So when they're learning, they believe the service they offer is the code they write or how they've made some web app faster. But the reality is the customers probably don't care, as the code is just a small part of what's happening. There's a whole bunch of value from the sales people, the marketing people, and the content people, even the customers themselves. So I think it's good. So you can be good at coding and good at programming, but it's better to think like a generalist, to be able to understand the different aspects of everyone else from the team.
And do you think you picked that up from having a job in sales and from doing a different degree or reading different books?
I'd say sales probably helps a lot because when you work in sales, the least the sales training I got in Canada was very good. It taught me that there's this emotional component to people, and it was funny. I used to be the kind of most honest salesperson because in Canada they have what's called an oligopoly. So there's two telecom companies. They all charge the same prices, but they make out that they're competing against each other. And Canada has one of the highest rates of cell phone bills in the world. So an average bill in Canada would be $100, $120. But over here in Europe, we're paying like €20 for unlimited data. Whereas they wouldn't have unlimited data. They would have nothing like that. And so when the Canadians would come to me and they'd tell me like, I want to switch my plan, and I'd tell them what plan is on offer, and they'd say, is that a good deal? And I'd say, well, it's not really, but it's the best you can get. And they would, they actually really appreciated that. And so I learned that people kind of like that. I'd say it in kind of a humorous way. And people kind of like that honesty, and that that they could trust me. And then I ended up getting more sales, and that understanding that side of people, because people have an emotional attachment to things, and so understanding that really helps would help any programmer. Because programmers like to be, a lot of them like to be black and white, and they believe that they're kind of the biggest part of the business. And usually they are. They're usually the most expensive part as well in some cases. So, but it's good for most programmers to understand that there is a human element outside of them, and and they're not made up there a lot of the time. So
how did your journey begin in programming? What was your first step? What did it look like?
So I just started. It was a site back in 2011, 2012. I'm not sure if it's there anymore. It's called Code Academy, and it was just basic HTML and CSS. But after I went through that, I started setting up WordPress blogs, and then with WordPress blogs, I like to set them up for fun. I come up with an idea and I just set up a new website, and it's fun to learn all about how to set up a WordPress blog. It's very easy to set up a WordPress blog. But pretty soon you're like, well, I would like to plug in. I'd like a PHP plugin to do this, or WordPress plugin to do this, and it's not doing that. How do I make it do that? And then you realize it's when people are actually programming this, they're writing this in PHP. And I was like, well, I'd rather be able to do that. It was kind of a frustration that I had, and then I started looking into it, and eventually I just said, well, it looks like this is actually a pretty good kind of career to have. It's intellectually stimulating. It's it's well established. There's loads of exciting things happening in it. So I just in November 2013 I set my own blog, and I started originally I started trying to learn Java, which is a lower level language, and and it's the most popular language in the world. So I think, and so I started learning that because my idea was to make Android apps, and so I just started reading books, and then writing little programs, and then eventually I discovered Ruby, and then I wrote a blog post that did quite well on Reddit, and someone reached out to me, and there's this course called Make It with Code. And it was made by these three people in the UK. They were their own startup, and so it's actually the whole course was just to make 10 apps with Ruby, like 10 web apps, and I did that. And they weren't actually all specifically web apps, but and I did that, and I was like, right, I'm just going to learn Ruby, and that's what started me on Ruby, and eventually now I've write Ruby professionally as well.
So when did you move away from Java?
Why?
Yeah.
Java's really Java is good at being Java. It's I started with Java, and the thing with Java is to get something up and running takes a lot of investment in time, whereas Ruby, particularly with Rails or Snapchat or any of those frameworks, you can build something, pretty quickly. And for me, I'm not like I like building things. I don't really care about what language I'm using or what tool I'm using. I'll use a brick and bash against the computer if I thought I was going to get a result. And so, Ruby just allows me to achieve what I want to achieve quicker. Now, that's not to dismiss like other languages like Java. I know there's like dozens of people work with Java professionally, and that's brilliant for them. But for my use case, Ruby was perfect because I was learning more about object-oriented programming, and I was building stuff. So I was building out a portfolio, which is what I was going to use to eventually get a job. And in Dublin, when I looked at the market, there was a lot of Java jobs, but Ruby was up there. It was always Ruby Rails. We need Ruby Rails. We need Ruby Rails. And people, when I put I put on LinkedIn that I was learning Ruby, I was getting, I wasn't hadn't that much experience, particularly for reaching out to me. So I knew I was on the right track to learn Ruby and eventually getting the software development job.
So did you have one eye on functionality and one eye on the market when you were choosing Ruby too?
Yeah, so I'm very risk averse. So when I decided that I'm going to become a software developer, the reason why I picked Java is because the market is lots of companies are looking for Java developers. I lived in a place called Letterkenny at the time, and most of the companies there were looking for Java developers. And so it was always, I think it was obvious I have to learn Java if I want to get a job. But Java has, as I said, it has its growing pains. And then, when that company reached out to me with Ruby, and I started learning Ruby, I was like, well, hang on, do I need to learn Java if I can just do the same thing in Ruby much faster, And why, so that was the reason, is that there's that just productivity that Ruby gives me that Java didn't, Now I'm sure if I went back and started writing Java, now I'm sure today if I started writing Java apps, I'd be much quicker at it because I just know more about programming. But I don't think I'd be as quick as I am to write a Ruby app or a Rails app, Do
you look at that period of learning Java as a waste of time, or did you actually learn stuff to help you learn Ruby?
No, it's definitely not a waste of time. The thing is, you can't really get the time back, so you can't really consider any time wasted. And you only know in the present moment if you're wasting time. And
what way did it help you? Did it help you to learn Ruby from having some sort of knowledge of Java? And if it did, in what way did it?
I would say because I spent 2 months learning Java, and I was learning all the different object-oriented principles, and just trying to build little apps. The little things I was building at the start were not spectacular by any means.
Can you give us an example of a few apps that you created at the start?
At the start, it was literally just command line apps and I had a go at creating an Android app and note-taking app. And I got it working, but that's not a compliment to what I built. So so I built that, and then it was around Christmas time or January that I discovered the New2Code. And then like after I did that course, I realized like living in the small town that I was, I had to move to Dublin because there's more opportunities. And so that's what I eventually did. So I think it was 2014 that I moved to Dublin, and I got a job, a random job, and wasn't particularly important to me. And that's where I met you, of course. So doing that job, learning, and when I had that job, well, as you saw, I was learning programming when I was there. Sometimes when I was supposed to be doing the job, I was learning programming. So, yeah.
You're just making most of your time and stuff.
What's that?
Because at the time you were actually doing a good job, but you're also just optimizing your time for your vision too, I suppose. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, because the job is the call center, right? So if you're not getting called, you're not supposed to, there's nothing to do. That's your job. And so a lot of people would, sit around, have a laugh, things like that. And I certainly would join in the odd time, but I used the time as decided, I could use this time to really eke out more hours of practice. Because I was studying every night, not every night, but 3 or 4 times a week. And so studying, and so while I was there, it was great benefit because the time we had, we were just able to learn our things. And some people there were using it to get ahead of their careers. So it was great.
So is that how you find time to do this stuff? Is it like those things where we'd overlook the time we have in our hands?
I think people just, it depends. Like some people don't want to learn in their spare time, and they don't want to do all this stuff that we hear. A lot of people, look, I can understand. No one wants to go home after a hard day's work and then sit and look at a computer or a program, because chances are they've been looking at a computer as their job for 8 hours. And I suppose it's deciding what to do with the time is the first thing. So it's making that conscious effort to decide. So how I found the time is I just don't really watch TV. That's one thing. So it's elimination. I don't watch TV. Don't even have a TV. And so that's probably, so now that all of a sudden a lot of people spend time watching TV and spend a lot of time on Facebook, I don't really do that. I'd rather just make stuff and learn stuff. And so even after work, after the gym, so even if you spend 2 hours in the gym, if you get home, chances are you probably have an hour or you have half an hour. That's enough time to get something done. And it's not about putting in massive hours, loads of hours every day. It's about just eking out a tiny little result every day. The way I look at it is like, I'd rather do 20 minutes every day than 6 hours in one day. So even if I only did 20 minutes of something, that's better than doing nothing. And then trying to have it all applied in. I like to spread out my work into little sections and get it done that way. So eke out little tiny results every day. I do have a process for that kind of thing, for productivity in general.
Could you give us an example of a process or a system you have in place to make that easier to do consistently?
What kind of system do I have to learn?
Yeah, like how do you actually get yourself to do this every day? And does it get easier, like even just motivationally?
I don't know. I honestly, I couldn't answer the motivation question. I don't think it's motivation with me. I think it's just routine. And as I say, I suppose when you feel you have to learn a lot. And programming is a big field. Not only do you have to learn the language itself, but there's these concepts that you have to learn, and then there's databases, and also you have to learn how browsers behave, and how people behave, and how you organize work. All these different concepts come into play, and it's a complicated field. And the best way to get over that, for me, is not to think about all that, is to just get a small bit done every day and make it small. And so if it's only 20 minutes, do your 20 minutes and then say, right, I'm happy, I'm finished that. And you can go away guilt-free. I think the guilt of not doing something leads to procrastination. So if you put too much pressure on yourself, say you're like, I want to write a blog post of 2,000 words. If you put that pressure on yourself to have it done like this evening, like after work, well, chances are you're just going to make it hard for yourself. And you might start saying, well, it's a lot of work. But if you said to yourself, well, look, I'm only going to get 100 words done. If I get 100 words done, result. If I get more done, yeah, it's okay. That's better still. So be happy with doing a small bit. And then if you get more done, even better. But the next day then, don't say, well, I got 500 words done and I said I was only going to do 100. Maybe I'll do 600. No, let's say I'll do 100 again. And so that little piece of activity, so instead of doing a lot of work up front, doing tiny bit, and this tiny bit eats out over a month, all of a sudden it reaches the 3,000 words in no time, And usually I find as well, if I set myself a small goal, I end up doing more because I've achieved a small goal and I have this momentum carried it forward.
So. Makes sense. And what's your idea, or what's your thoughts on perfectionism and making mistakes then?
Yeah, it's important to make mistakes. Like you're not going to learn until you make mistakes, and the bigger the mess up, the faster you'll learn. So because some mistakes, it's not always good to make mistakes. But some mistakes you can't come back from. If let's say you do something that embarrasses somebody, or you damage a relationship, especially when you get, oddly enough, when you get older, it's harder to make a mistake in that relationship because you don't see people a lot. It's not like in school where you see people every day. It's easier to make up. So mistakes, perfectionism is never good. Sometimes you just have to get to a stage where you say, good enough. I'm currently building a web application for someone, and I've just got to the stage where I can hand it off to the designer. But the design I've done, it's by no means any good, but it's good enough that the designer doesn't have that much work to do, and the client is happy with it, and they're not dazzled, or they're not looking at a page that's got all these parallax effects or things like that. But they can just see that I've done certain work, I've put it out, it's good enough, let's just move on,
So that's a sweet spot there, I suppose, when once the client's happy and the designer's not too much to do with. So what you're aiming for.
Yeah. And there is when it comes to getting stuff done, though, there's actually a great YouTube video that I recommend. It's called Tiny Habits, and I don't think it's a psychologist from Stanford, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but basically he has this course called Tiny Habits. It's a 5-minute video, and it's really really good. So let's say you want to learn how to floss your teeth. A lot of people find flossing your teeth really hard. Well, to build the habit of flossing your teeth, just start and aim to floss 1 tooth a day for a month, and then you aim to floss one, and then it's pretty easy, and then all of a sudden over 30 days, flossing that 1 tooth, it's such a small thing to do that you just end up flossing. But you only aim to floss one, and you leave it at that.
Small steps, so that's pretty much. So
yeah.
That's what I'm finding with those other things. It's like even something as small as flossing your teeth can build in that habit and turn on to bigger things gradually over time.
Yeah, so it's just like I think that when you go to start a project or start a new challenge or a new chapter, you always kind of make a mountain of it. But the trick is to kind of bring it down, chop it down, chop it down, chop it down. And instead of making it a giant mountain, how can you make it into just a small thing that I can just step over and get started on my way? It's like climbing the giant stairs. You're not going to climb it by thinking how you're going to approach every step or how you approach the top. You just start at the first step and you move the next step, move the next step. And the smaller you make something at the beginning, the more likely you are to carry forward, I think.
That's it. So what has been the best investment in courses that you've done so far?
I would say, definitely. Even though it's funny, even though I don't go to, I didn't finish out college, I probably spent more money on learning an online courses than the average person who leaves college. So one course I did, online course, really had I did this back in 2014, 2013, and it's called Finish with Formula by a guy called New2Code. And that book is about positivity. And it's actually just about what we're talking about. So he broke that course into 3 courses. The first is planning. You plan everything you want to do. And even to this day, I use the calendar. I put everything on the calendar because myself and my partner, we share a calendar. We know what each other are doing. And so we plan things way in advance. And so we know what's coming up and it's all on my calendar. And every day I can just check my calendar to see what I'm doing. I put when I'm going to the gym, where I'm working, everything's on it. And so when someone asks me, "Oh, you free that evening?" or whatever, I can just look at my calendar and say, "I'm free." And it's lifted a massive burden on my mind. And the second thing is then it's building a habit. So being able to build a habit. There's a great book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and he talks about building a habit much the same way as he talks about with the small steps in the flossing. So that book is really, really good. But the course itself goes into an interview with it and how he builds a habit. And so let's just say as an example, let's just say you want to go to the gym. You never really go to the gym. A lot of people say, "Well, I want to go to the gym." A lot of people they look at the successful people, successful gym goers, and they see that they're going 5 days a week, 4 days a week. And so they try to emulate them. But there's that phrase, "Don't be 40 before you're 40." And so don't try and emulate those successful people because they've actually been through all those small little steps already. What they're able to do now is just routine to them. They don't even know what motivation is. They just know they go in, they go out, and they stay at it. And so when let's say you're going to the gym, and let's say you're a bit of a slob, and you never went to the gym, the best way to start is not to say, "I need to go 4 days a week or 5 days a week or 3 days a week." The best thing to do is for the next 2 months, I'm going to go to the gym every week for half an hour. And because that's such a small commitment to make, the chances are you're going to succeed. And then all of a sudden you're going to say, "Well, maybe I can go for 2 days a week, half an hour each." And then, you do that for another 3 months. And then after that 3-month period, you say, "Well, maybe I can go 3 days a week." And so you build this little routine up over time. And all of a sudden, you don't need to worry about motivation. The habit is already there. Now, sometimes you would fall out of the habit. But once you've learned how to build that habit, that bit by bit, it gets easier. And it's better to make the small little steps and then rather than going, "I'm going to get a personal trainer, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week and run and every morning and eat healthy." No, you're taking on too much. Just break it down to small things. Don't change your diet. Don't change anything. Just start going to the gym for half an hour. Do that for 2 months. And then after 2 months, go for 2 days a week, for half an hour. And don't worry about diet. You can change those things tiny bit at a time. And within 3 years, you'll be surprised what you'll achieve,
Makes sense.
And then the last thing we talked about then was just long-term goals. Setting really long-term goals, for over 5 years. So instead of setting I'm going to achieve this in 6 months, it can be good. So setting a long-term goal might be better, might be more realistic. That was a good course, a good investment in myself, I think.
Cool. So how do you find the balance with your diet and exercise and work? How important is balance to you?
Yeah, I go to the gym 4 days a week, and like I said, it's down to routine, and it depends on what I'm trying to achieve at the moment. So at this current time, I'm trying to gain weight, which might sound odd to some. That is, that's just a matter of eating more, and was it like I just basically what I do is like when I'm trying to lose weight, I would be having snacks. So let's say at the moment I have a snack say around 3 o'clock, and then I have another one at like 11. And so what I do is I added those in when I'm trying to gain weight. When I'm trying to lose weight, I take one of them away for a while, and then I take the other one. And the first 2 days you're kind of hungry around that time, so your body recognizes when to eat. But after a week or so, it goes away, and I've done so much at this stage that so it is. And in terms of eating healthy when you have a job, I know some people find it difficult, but like I have help here. I have like my partner, she eats healthy, and that helps. So what I do is like I would cook. Then Monday at work, I would cook like enough to bring for lunch tomorrow, and I have that happen.
So you always like that discipline with food, or was that kind of incrementally as well? To get into that?
I was always interested in diet and nutrition, and diet nutrition is a funny one because you learn there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of I suppose I can only call them charlatans out there that can lead you astray, and sometimes you do get led down a new diet or whatever. So I don't know if it was I think I was lucky because my parents fed me good food when I was younger, and now not notwithstanding they're like a typical Irish household, so they have meat, vegetables, and lots of potatoes. So like as long as you're eating potatoes, you'll be fine. That's like the real Irish way, isn't it? Like if you're eating potatoes, you'll turn out okay. And then and now we're all walking around third class nation in Europe. But yeah, so like I think that like the parents had a routine of eating like cooked food, and so I suppose naturally when you grow up, whether you like it or not, you're going to take on some of the parents' habits. But eating healthy, like I eat pretty differently from my parents. So like I don't eat cereal in the morning, and so things like that. What it is again, it's probably the incremental build up. I've learned to like eat more protein in the morning instead of having porridge. I'd have eggs, and I'd have a bagel with like egg, scrambled egg or something like that.
Okay. So I guess if you had 3 tips you could give to somebody who wanted to change career, they wanted to self-learn and maybe what's stopping them, they think they need a certain degree or they need certain skill sets before that. What would be 3 tips you would give to help them to get started and do it?
I suppose set a long-term goal. Don't be in a rush to do this, and acknowledge that it's okay to do it slowly over time. Like to do it as long as you're doing a small bit on a regular basis, you will get there in the end. And buy lots of books. I can't really give 3 tips. The only tip I can give is buy lots of books and read all those tips because I'm by no means an expert. I just like, and there's also a bit of luck. And another thing as well, I would tell people is to, my advice for always for, I have lots of cousins who are going to college and things like that, and I always say, look, you got to learn how the market works. If you have a skill that not many people know how to do, but it's highly desirable, you will have a good career. If you learn something just because you want to learn it or think it's trendy, but no one wants it really, then don't. There is a thing called the market. Even if you're doing what you love, you can't really do what you love if you're not making that much money. If it doesn't make ends meet, there's no point. So learn how the market works, I think, definitely. So before you go decide to change your career, make sure it's a viable career, basically.
Just even a short list of books that you recommend for anybody who wants to self-learn.
Well, not, I suppose some of these books wouldn't necessarily be about self-learn, but there's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I mentioned that book. It's not like going to change your life or anything like that, but it's good to read these principles. I'm not sure these kind of books are any good or anything like that, but it's a really good book to read, and you get this general perspective, and you talk about how to communicate with people, things like that. There's another book called I Will Teach You Rich by Amy Stacy. It's a personal finance book. I just think everyone should read at least one personal finance book. And then there's other books then, like How to Win Friends and Influence People, good book. Especially if you want to do interviews or if you want to maybe freelance, so it's important to be able to communicate with people. And in that same vein, there's another book called Give and Take by Adam Grant. And it's a book about reciprocation and how, if you do something for someone, generally they feel like they owe you a favor. And so if you're a really giving person, you can build up this bank of favors, and you have sort of effectively people would always help you out, but they always return the favor. And then it also goes into the side of people who take advantage of givers. And so it's a really good book. Horizontally, good book. It's a good book because that kind of principle of let's say reciprocation. Like when I have a client at the moment, and what I did for that client for early money was explained. I wrote up a free report on how they could improve their website, and they were able to take that report and they actually changed the website and they actually started getting results. So before I didn't even ask for money or anything like that. They knew, okay, this guy is actually trying to help us out, so maybe we should take him on. And that's a really good book. The 4-Hour Workweek is a good book, but it's not really like great. It's a good book for changing your perspective.
Yeah.
So it kind of challenges your perspective on what it is to be, to retire. Sounds like all these kind of
assumptions.
set ideas. Yeah, and then there's fitness books I like. There's Dark and Strength, a great book by Mark Russell. Then there's a few computer software books that I would recommend to anybody to read. And one of them is Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug. So this book is about design and how small little things can actually be bad design. So a good example of bad design is you ever get to those doors and it says there's a door handle on it, but it says push. And what does everybody do? They pull it because it's a handle. And when people see a handle, intuitively they pull and then they push. But that's actually just bad design. So if you actually just had a flat, if you didn't have a handle there, people wouldn't push. So this is that's just an example of bad design. That book, Don't Make Me Think, goes into that. Specifically about the web, it goes into that. And then another book is probably about a lot of things. It's called The Paradox of Choice. Very good book to learn the limitations of choice. It's an interesting book because we have this assumption that to be free is to have unlimited choice. But the more choice you give someone, the chances of them making that choice decrease with the more choices you give them. And then another book is Charisma Myth by Elizabeth Fox-Sedan. That's a really good book about interacting with people. And then there's other books then I like. This sounds like a boring book, but it's an amazing book. It's called The Checklist Manifesto. It's a book about checklists. And you never think checklists would be exciting, but they're not. But this is a good book about checklists.
Checklist Manifesto, is it?
Checklist Manifesto. So it's written by a doctor called Atul Gawan. And it's just about how putting in simple things can have a huge effect on particularly he's talking about hospitals. So just by say with a surgeon, so surgeons tend to spread a lot of disease, and so what they usually surgeons were in a position where they just ignore the nurse. The nurse is kind of the assistant. So what he did is he put the nurse in a position of power where the surgeon has to make sure that the nurse will go, or that the nurse would read out a checklist, and the surgeon has to make sure that everything goes on the checklist. This dramatically decreased infection in one hospital, and situations like that. And really good book. And then The Secret Millionaire Next Door. It sounds like a scammy title. It's not. It's a book about frugality and how these households that shouldn't really be rich are rich, and how high spending, even though they have huge incomes, like say Conor McGregor who's gotten 100 million, well, they quickly become bankrupt in 10, 20 years. Not that that's going to happen to Conor McGregor, but these secret millionaires, they're more humble. They just kind of gather wealth. They don't really like spending money, and amazingly end up retiring with millions. And it's a really interesting book. And another book then is like I don't want to go on and on.
Yeah,
but go on for it. But,
yeah, you could. Yeah. That's a pretty comprehensive list. That's pretty well-rounded.
What book do you recommend?
I recommend.
In the last year, like, what book have you read that you thought pretty good?
I guess actually it's A Little Book of Clarity by James Mack. For me, that was the first book where it was just like simple. It was like understanding of the mind. It was just like it resonated, and it was like this clears a lot of things up. To do with like overanalyzing stuff. I kind of found that balance better between my tendency to overanalyze something and just kind of going, okay, whatever.
Is it like about mindfulness?
It's about state of mind. So it's like it's when you're looking at something and you realize that you're the one creating the problems around it. So you're actually looking at it more simply, and you can see the solution a lot clearer from that kind of clarity. That's the best way I can describe it, I guess.
Yeah, well, sounds good. And would it be like a scientific kind of book, or is it more like?
No, it's more. I guess it's more innate wisdom. It's like you're more kind of just reflective, and you're more allowing the space to emerge for something to look at something differently. So what I find is that when I'm trying to solve a problem, and I can get very tunnel vision on it and getting the same thing over and over and over, but until I get that bit of awareness where I'm like, okay, I just need to see something different here, or talk to somebody different with a different perspective, I'll keep getting the same results, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's how I would describe it, I guess.
Yeah. Any other books then?
At the moment, I'm reading The Art of Learning, which is really good. It's a guy, again, but he was like a guy that was going to be the next Bobby Fischer. He was like a world champion in chess, and he decided to do Tai Chi instead, and he started seeing the underlying principles between the two fields.
I've heard of this book, The Art of Learning. Is it good?
Yeah, I'm reading it at the moment. Yeah, no, I like it because we start seeing how two different fields, how they can complement each other. So when I'm looking at it, like chess is pretty highly analytical, then Tai Chi is more about focusing on the breath and using your energy and your body and stuff. And we start to see how your advantages from chess can be applied to Tai Chi, and then Tai Chi can give you better stuff that chess can give you necessarily.
Yeah, so I definitely found that like skills are transferable. Like even with like Pokemon, which we're talking about, like I find that is the routine that I got from like fitness, like playing sports every day, going to training on like 3-4 days a week. That crossed over into learning programming because I was able to apply that principle of studying regularly to eventually get stronger at the skills.
That's it. Yeah. Another book actually is the Talent Code, how greatness is grown, not born. So that just kind of looks at the brain and how the myelination of the synapses that are firing, how it strengthens over time, and that's how things become easier and more effortless, just from a scientific point of view.
But Joe, I'm actually going to use this opportunity then to talk about you. Joe, when it comes to your languages, Do you speak, how many languages do you speak?
I speak four. Like French would be my strongest, and Spanish and Italian I learned from after learning French.
And so, when did you learn those languages? Like, can you give us like a chronicle of when you learned those languages?
When I learned them, so I learned French in university, and then I went to France as an English teaching assistant for a year.
Secondary school or high school, like, did you do French?
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, I did it in secondary school, and I did it in university. It was only when I started going to the country. It was really when I started seeing I could speak to French people that the desire started coming from within me to actually learn it. And it was then that I started like making it a game for myself to just improve and be able to communicate. And I started seeing the psychological elements of like not taking myself so seriously and learning from mistakes and that kind of thing. And then I learned Spanish and Italian after French. Because I started seeing, I read some stuff on word usage frequency, and I came across a book from Benny Lewis, and I just started reading about Pareto's Law and these little hacks that I didn't know about even when I was learning French right the way through. And yeah, it started with just opening my mind to possibilities that it's possible to learn Spanish and Italian within a few months rather than another 3-4 years to learn it.
And do you think you had the pattern of a language already there? Because I speak a little bit of French, but not like I couldn't find myself fluent. So you had the pattern of like learning to speak a different language. Do you think that made it easier to learn Italian or Spanish?
Yeah, definitely, because they were within the same language family. So once I learned French, I didn't have to waste time wrapping my head around the idea of what does a word structure look like in Spanish and Italian. Because you could really go down the detail and get bogged into the differences between Spanish and Italian and French. So I just looked at like the big picture similarities. I started learning the basics. And so at the start, like I was comfortable with the unknown after a while. So like watching videos, I didn't understand anything in Spanish and Italian, even though I was really good at French at that stage. But I just persevered and I learned the stuff I needed to learn to start talking. And that just increased my confidence, increased the momentum, and I got to like a conversation with everyone both after like 3 months. But that was with a lot of hours every day I was probably spending.
And so when you were learning these languages, so when you were learning French, you went to Toulouse, didn't you? And you got to speak French, basically.
Oh, yeah, it was like a small town outside Biarritz, and nobody spoke English there, so it was a great time for me to actually just speak French every day for a year.
And how long was you there for?
For an academic year. And that's when I learned Spanish and Italian. So I never actually lived in Spain or Italy. So that kind of debunked the myth I needed to go there. Obviously, I could get better at it if I went there, but you don't have to actually go there to learn it.
So yeah, that was my next question. Like, when you were learning like Spanish or Italian, like, how did you practice speaking Spanish or Italian or Portuguese if you'd never been there? Because I assumed you learned these in Dublin. So you learned these in France, and so how did you like go about practice? Would you be comfortable speaking to Italian person?
So yeah, now it's kind of I'd be comfortable in having a conversation. Like I'd easily get by with them. Now it's practice. Like if I was speaking Italian for 3 weeks, I'd be like really comfortable with it. If I speak to somebody now, it's kind of like we'll struggle through a conversation, but we'll have a dialogue, we'll have a conversation going, and there's not that much I wouldn't understand. I can understand more than I can speak due to the fact that I don't practice it that much. You don't have like a muscle memory. Yeah, but I have that confidence. I have that understanding that language is pretty much a means to communicate with somebody. It's not a reflection on like my intelligence and all this kind of stuff. It's like when you can get that out of your head, it's like this is practically a means to communicate to somebody that I wouldn't be able to communicate with otherwise. And we'll go from there. Start learning the words, start making mistakes, that kind of thing. And that's how I kind of got with it. But I started realizing that there's 4 different levels of it. So you can go like, I want to just read and write, or I want to like interact and listen. So for listening, I just did it subliminally. So I watched like interviews on YouTube. So at the start, I didn't understand nothing. I started learning words that I knew were going to be in that interview based on the fact they're pretty frequent within that domain, like sport or something like that. And then after a few weeks, I started like picking out words here and there, and that really was great for my confidence because after 2 weeks, I was like watching the advanced level stuff, like natural language stuff, and understanding words here and there, which I wouldn't have been doing if I didn't have that mentality. So I wouldn't be able to skill that people like beginner, intermediate, advanced because it just seems so damn long to get to speaking it. They're always putting it off. Or just go in there and dive in from day one. That's how I kind of run from Benny Lewis's book. Just go in there from day one, learn the practical stuff, make mistakes, have fun. Because fluency is arbitrary. There's no such thing as like perfect fluency in any language.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like, because even people who are like, even people who are born speaking a language, they don't know all the words in the language, right? I suppose so. One way I define fluency, or two ways. One, when you tell a joke in French, would you be able to tell like a joke in French? Now, obviously, I wouldn't get it, but
I'm going to tell a joke in French.
Like a joke in French to be able to deliver, because if I told a joke in English, you could say it in many different ways. You have like different like deadpan jokes, like there's, I don't know if the French do deadpan. Do the French do deadpan? I know they do, but like do they like so like what would be a French kind of joke? Would you be able to joke in French, like in a way, either say a joke or respond with like a witty retort?
I think the humor is a little bit different. That's a good topic because when I think about it now, it's like I don't always get jokes in English. Like I'll get some jokes in French, I won't get other jokes.
That's just because my jokes are really bad, isn't it?
But no, it's a good thing to highlight because you might, like, as a learner, you might have this perception that if I don't get the jokes in French, that means that my level isn't good enough. But actually, when I think about it in English, I just always turn it around to my native language and I go, do I always understand jokes in English? I don't. So why would I expect to always understand jokes in French? And especially when it's like you've got a culture, like different way of thinking. So sometimes it could be hilarious to somebody from another country, and it's like that's not really funny. You might think maybe I'm missing something here, but maybe you're not.
What about something? Well, another kind of way I describe fluency, particularly like sometimes I would be. I don't know how it happens, but like my mother is really good at this. She's really got really good prose and really articulate. And so when she's talking in a conversation, she's always able to bring in a new word that makes sense to everybody there. And I wouldn't have heard it in a while. So she just brings in a word, so like a synonym for something maybe, or something like that, or make the story a bit better. Would you be able to do that? So I don't know if I can like
With me?
So like let's just say so like instead of using like a word like say story, say oh he had this narrative, instead of saying oh he had this story. So my mother would she would say something like say oh he was narrating this instead of oh he was telling me that.
Yeah.
So she kind of have a synonym for telling. And whereas most people they'd be say well he said this to me, or my mother would say well he was narrating this. And since you usually have a joke. So would you be able to, like, when you're speaking French, be able to reach for a synonym instead of, or if a French person did use a synonym, would you understand?
Yeah, I would. Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but what I did think of when you said that is that's how I approach Spanish and Italian. I got rid of all the necessary synonyms. So I learned that one word instead of the 10. Like, because there's a tendency to try and learn everything at once. So if you go like that one word, it'll always do you. At least you're communicating, And I think that's the difference between my level in French and Spanish and Italian. Like French, I'll have more words, I'll have more synonyms and more ways of saying things because just from the fact that I've lived there, I've been longer learning the languages. So I think that's the struggle with Spanish and Italian for me. I wouldn't have as many synonyms and different ways of saying things and expressing things. But I do find in Spanish and Italian, I can understand more than I can actually say, just due to the fact I don't practice enough. But,
and what about getting jokes? So we talked about telling jokes. What about getting a joke? So if a French person told a joke, would you get it? Like, if they said a very French joke in French?
No, it's hard to tell. Like,
Or has it happened to you and you have thought, or
like there's definitely situations where there would have been a joke I wouldn't understand it, and there's situations where I would have understood it. But off the top of my head, I don't know. Like the thing is, there's a different type of humor. What I did notice when I was in France, they did think that there was a perception that well, it's probably real that in English-speaking countries we have more dark humor. So taboo stuff like death and stuff, we seem to joke a lot more than in France, and it's a different kind of way. And I can remember when I was watching the shows and stuff, I'd often like just wouldn't get the jokes. I understand them, but I wouldn't get why it's funny. Um,
yeah. And of course, there's the whole French culture, the French context.
yeah, that's it. Yeah. So like my understanding wouldn't be as deep as somebody who's French, around when it comes to culture, because that's the thing about language is a lot of it's influenced by culture and thinking and that kind of stuff. And when you're not naturally from that country, there is going to be elements that go over your head. But just being okay with that and realizing that, because a block I had when I was learning languages was that I thought there was like this ideal fluency that I would get to one day. But then when I started questioning my own English, I was like, okay, there is no where to get to here. It's just like functional. What do I need to learn here?
And so, like, have you ever like mixed up a word? So this is it. Like, I remember I had a French teacher, and he told me one day he was in France and he's working in a factory, and he was describing what they did in the factory for all the French people around him. He was describing it in French, obviously, and then he said something like, to the effect, he used the word preservatif, and that they put it in the food, and preservatif, which I did not know is the French word for condom. So he just told her like this, with all these French people, and he's putting condoms in the food, and that makes them tastier. And so, does that ever situation like that happen to you?
There's room for that. No, that I don't have used that word, but that was a confusion for me to start. Preservative is like you think it's a preservative, but it's a condom. Off the top of my head, I don't think anything. I don't think anything like that happened. What would happen though, I would like, because when I speak French, I've got an English speaker accent that's very clear that I'm not from France, and the other time I'll get ridiculed. It wouldn't even be ridiculed. A lot of people like it. They just kind of tease you for it and stuff. And I quite like that. I could take it two ways. I could get insulted by that, or I can just embrace that. And I just kind of chose to embrace that. That's the only thing that kind of comes to mind for me.
You never got the situation where you brought a lady friend home, and she said, "You have a preservative." You're like, "What preservative? No."
No,
that never happened,
I'd seen that distinction before that, so
that'd be very awkward if you were like, preservative. Why do we need a preservative? We're about to have sex. What are you on about?
Yeah, no, like there's plenty of room for those kind of stuff, and what it's just like what I'm saying there is just you can take it two ways.
Yeah, absolutely, no.
That's the two choices there. So anyway, great talking to you, William. How can people actually get in contact with you if they want to?
But if you go to New2Code.com, you can read like my blog post. If you sign up for my email newsletter, I have a free course that that'll tell you how basically to go about getting a career. And that's it. It's about, I think, it's a 14 or 15-day email course, and it's that's it. There's no sales. I don't make any money. Some of it's super free. And sometimes I would send an email to everybody with something new came out, and that's it. Or you can follow me on Twitter at New2Code, number 2 code. And that's it.
Perfect. Well, thanks for taking the time to join us today, William, and for all your insights and tips. And so until next time, have fun and enjoy the process.